Hello, and welcome back to this course of videos on MongoDB and NoSQL databases. In this video, we'll be looking at why we would use MongoDB and other NoSQL databases, really the benefits of using them. Now, it's important to note, first of all, that NoSQL databases is not a one-size-fits-all. There'd be certain applications, certain scenarios where you would prefer to use the relational model over the NoSQL model. For example, if a bank needed a database to store their customers' information and to update their balances when customers make withdrawals, that would be better suited in a relational database structure. The reason being is, as we mentioned in the previous video, the relational database structure has much more focus on durability and consistency of data, and they do this by incorporating transactions. Now, transactions have an overhead which affects performance. So on the NoSQL side, they do without transactions. So they basically slightly sacrifice durability and consistency for performance. So with this banking app, you wouldn't want to sacrifice durability and consistency for performance. You would want your ability for transactions, so you would use a relational model. However, if you were building, for example, a real-time chat app with humongous numbers of customers and data, Mongo comes from the word humongous. If you were doing that and you wanted to query this data lightning fast, then you would use something like a NoSQL database. So it's key to know that there's different tools for different jobs. Now, looking at the benefits of NoSQL databases, the first thing we have is performance. Now, we've mentioned, first of all, this trade-off. There is a certain element of that. There are aspects of the relational database model, like transactions, that Mongo and other NoSQL databases don't use for the performance aspect. Another reason that performance tends to be better in the NoSQL databases is because, as you saw previously, data in a NoSQL database is self-contained in documents. So we had the customer example. All the data for that customer was enclosed in one particular document, rather than in the relational model, the data for that one customer was spread across 3 tables, if you remember. Now, if when you query, your database has to query across 3 different tables, it's going to not be as performant as it is in a NoSQL model, where all the data for that one query is self-contained in one document. A final actual performance aspect which is limited, which is specific just for Mongo, is that MongoDB stores its data using a format called BSON, B-S-O-N. Now that actually stands for binary JSON. We looked at the JSON object in a previous video, and we explained that JSON is now widely used as a model for transmitting data from client to server and back. Now, BSON is a binary implementation of JSON, and Mongo uses that to store data because it's very fast to read from. One of Mongo's biggest competitors that we mentioned previously, which is CouchDB, instead stores its data in raw JSON, in native JSON format. Mongo stores it in BSON, the binary version of data, which is slightly quicker to read, which gives it a slight performance edge. Now, the second piece is scalability. Now, scalability we've talked about before in the fact that, again, because our data, the data in our customer example, all the data for that customer is self-contained in a single document, it allows us to scale horizontally. So as we increase the numbers of our customers, we simply buy extra servers to store our data on. So this is a benefit. The scalability is a big benefit of using NoSQL databases. This is accentuated with cloud computing, because when you're horizontally scaling, You don't need to go out and buy a new server. You can simply use something like Amazon Web Services and, or DigitalOcean, for example, and you can just scale horizontally in this manner through cloud computing. The other thing about scalability is MongoDB specifically uses a technique called auto-sharding. And what it can actually do, if you have multiple horizontal servers, it can spread out your documents, your collections among these different servers automatically. So that each server would be called a shard, and each shard would be holding a different piece of your overall data. So that's scalability. In terms of flexibility, we briefly touched upon this as well, in the sense that relational databases have fixed schema. So you can't, for example, let's go back to the customer example. If my initial customer table was just holding the customer ID, the customer name, and the email. If after the millionth customer, I realized I wanted to start storing age as well, I would need to go back and amend my fixed schema, take the server down, amend my schema, add the extra column of age, reboot the server, and then start collecting the data. However, with NoSQL, I can simply the next document that I append to my collection, I can simply add the age field or the age key value pair. So it is flexible in that sense. Similar, the converse scenario is similar. So the converse would be if, for example, a customer doesn't have an email, they don't want to populate email. In the relational side, we would have to still put a value in the email column. We would have to put a null value in there. However, with NoSQL, you just don't put the key value pair in the document. You just completely leave it out. An analogy would be on a business card. If you have a fax number, if you have a fax number, you put fax and then the fax number on your business card. However, if you don't have a fax number, you're not going to put fax blank. You're just not going to put the fax key on there, which is what we do with NoSQL databases. The final thing is usability. Now, we mentioned before about object-oriented programming, and the way that the drivers that interface between the code that you would write in, for example, the object-oriented code you would write in Java or Node or PHP, the drivers convert that data very easily to the underlying data format, which in Mongo's case is BSON. So it very easily maps the objects that you use in your native programming language with the underlying storage format, which, like I said in Mongo, is BSON. So instead of with relational databases, you would need to take your objects within your programming language and actually parse them out so they can fit in the different tables that are demanded by the relational model. But with NoSQL databases, the mapping between, like I said, the mapping between your objects and the underlying data format is very simple. So you can really communicate to the database using your native objects. So that makes it much easier to program with, a much more familiar model for developers that are used to object-oriented program. So I hope that gives you a good idea of the benefits of MongoDB and NoSQL databases in general, why we use them. And I look forward to seeing you in the